Welcome, everyone. Excited to have you here today, especially if you have been on the journey of health, either presently or maybe in the past, and you've had some goals in mind. And I know myself, once in a while, I have these goals in mind and I don't quite hit them. And so that's why I'm excited to have Coach Michael Krug with me today. He is a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. So his expertise is really helping you not only identify what your goal is, but most importantly, getting to that goal. So, welcome, Michael. Glad to have you today.
Thank you, Dr. Ty. I'm honored to be here today. Really excited to have a chat.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we see as I find right now, especially being in the health field, that it can be almost confusing out there with there's so much information, and nowadays we can get all the information, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're getting healthier from it, right? I
Very
know
true.
most people, they come into my office and hey, do you know something you could be doing to be healthier than you are right now? And everyone knows yep, I could be doing this, I could be doing that, right? But it
Yeah,
doesn't mean they're actually executing on it. So can you share,
right.
Michael, then where does coaching come into the realm? And if you kind of want to tie in maybe your own personal story, how you got into coaching yourself in your own health journey, I think people would love to hear that too.
It cut out a little bit. I heard the first part was where does coaching come into that realm? What was
Yes.
the second part?
And then if you have your own personal journey of how you got
Oh
into
yeah,
coaching, I think people would love to hear that.
for sure. Well, I'll start with the former. Like you said, there's so much information out there nowadays. I mean, I feel like every day there's someone creating a new diet or a new exercise program or a new product or something to help us accomplish our goals or get to where we want to be physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And, coaching is is very much different than the information side. It's actually putting together a plan to develop the strategies internally that we will be able to utilize within our own life that's sustainable to get there. So, and your second point, my journey to coaching and why, how I almost fell into this profession and why I'm so passionate about it. Uh, you know, Growing up, I was a heavier kid and I had a lot of emotional and mental traumas and things that I dealt with from parents' divorce and then from being teased at school, things like that. And you know, growing up after high school, I went to St. Cloud State, and when I was the age of 20, I had gone through my second major knee surgery and had really kind of lost uh, I guess, fully who I was. I didn't really feel connected in any sense of my life. I didn't have a lot of future outlook. And, when I was 20 years old, I came off crutches. I went to the follow up appointment at the doctor and I was 375 pounds. I was prescribed a high dose of lisinopril, which is a medication for blood pressure. And, not saying that's right or wrong, but essentially my body wasn't really functioning the way that it inherently and intuitively should. So I decided at that point I was going to make changes, and it took me a long time, a lot of trial and learning. I don't say trial and error, I say trial and learning along the way to find the strategies to, eventually lose. I lost over 160 pounds, which, the weight loss is one thing, but what I really value is what I gained, right? I regained myself as someone who enjoys activities and playing sports. Golf. Ty, we've golfed together on hockey, and I really gained a passion for helping others do that. So while I was in grad school, I actually started doing coaching with my friends who had seen my transformation, like on Facebook, and I absolutely loved it. I didn't actually know it was an industry, and I started just coaching people for free in 16. And 4 years later, I've turned it into what I do for a living, and I really have a passion for helping people understand that health is an internal phenomenon that we really are at the driver's seat of, and sometimes we get lost from that, but we can always come back to it as well. So,
That's
I hope that
awesome.
answers your questions.
That does. I love that you had the foresight too to say, well, at 20 years old, here's the trajectory my life's going right now. And you say, that's not my style, right? And I want it to go the other way. So for you to be able to take action, I think that gives you the ownership, right, to be in your seat right now.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like you said, and like we said, it's not necessarily easy. It wasn't an easy process, but like you said, I knew I had to make those changes to really, keep living, honestly. I had this point
Mhm.
where I thought it was kind of a life or death situation, so I'm glad that I was able to find the way.
For sure. What would you say, in your own journey and with the clients that you've worked with, what are some of the common pitfalls they do experience if they are trying to make a health change and they keep hitting their head against the ceiling or they keep regressing backward?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've seen with my clients, and even when it came to the start of my journey, is we really want results to go a lot faster
Mm.
than they realistically can in a sustainable way. Like, if it was easy to say, oh, you could lose 100 pounds in a month and keep it off, like that would be everyone would love that, but that's just not a realistic thing. And so often we have these kind of patterns and behaviors, and whether it's doing things in the evening that aren't serving us, or if it's just foods that we know that really feel good in the moment but they don't ultimately serve us in the long run. A lot of times we'll divert back to those as a coping mechanism when things get tough, and when we feel like we've been putting in so much effort and we're not necessarily seeing the results right away. And those, the common term people use in this space is the plateau. But a lot of times when the things get really tough and you're recognizing that you're maybe stalling or not seeing the progress that you want right away, that's when it's time to make a switch. And that's where having a coach or someone who's been through it to really bounce ideas off of, that can really be beneficial in breaking through those and getting to that next level.
Hmm. I know you mentioned your college degree being in psychology. Not on this call, but before when we were chatting, and that's what I picture.
Yeah.
Like coaching is probably a big piece of diving into the psychology of your client to see, because consciously, logically, they know to do something or not do something, right? But it's not. I'm same thing for myself. It's like I shouldn't eat a whole
Mhm.
thing of ice cream in one sitting, but sometimes I sit down and I do that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like what we know and what we do. There can be that gap there. So do you find yourself?
Mhm.
Do you find like that pattern of their thinking is one of the biggest things you help them work on?
Yeah, absolutely. With the psychological aspect of it, one of the biggest things that coaching is and what it came from is the movement when it comes to positive psychology. So, recognizing that we do have things, no matter where you're at in your health journey and in your life, you most likely do at least one thing that is serving you in your health journey, right? As long as you're breathing, right? Because we know breath is such an important thing that is good for our health. So it really taps into what we already do well, the strengths that we have. And also we tap into things that we've done in the past, right? We know that most people trying to make a change when it comes to their physical health or even mental emotional too, we've probably tried in the past to make changes. And there are probably some parts of that journey in the past that went well and other things that didn't go well. So we're really focusing on the things that are serving our health. And as you know, as your style of chiropractic, a salutogenic model, to really focus on the things that are working well and building upon those to develop and find new strategies to go forward with that. So
Mhm.
that's a big part of it. And then the other part of the psychology aspect that comes into play is utilizing techniques like motivational interviewing and appreciative inquiry to really dig deep and figure out, okay, if there is something that we want to do, what is the block that's there and how can we reframe it in a way and potentially either get past it or have it be something that will serve us, right?
Hmm.
Because
Okay.
we know subconsciously there's a lot of things and reasons why we might divert away from a plan that we're on. So if we can recognize it before we get to that point, it can help us just completely get around it.
Could you give an
And I think
example of
that,
one of
yeah,
those? Like, I'd be curious, and it doesn't have to be at the depth of it all, but just like a common scenario someone might be in, and how, and maybe it's an example of a client you've worked with, just to conceptualize one of those strategies a little more.
yeah. I guess one would be a client that I was working with just a couple months ago. He had tried different diets, and he actually, had an experience where he fasted, like didn't eat food for over 20 days. So We started working together, working on having food be something that serves him and being able to use it as a tool and a mechanism to facilitate his changes and to lose some weight. And he recognized that when he was getting to the point where he felt like he wasn't making progress, he had all sorts of emotional things from the past, from past relationships coming up. So having a session with him and being able to process those, like what was the deepest need, like when it came to that relationship, what was he not seeing that was not being fulfilled? How was that showing up now in his health journey and him wanting to, because we really, when I was working with him, he's like, we had to try and change his mindset from being like all or nothing and that total like pedal to the metal. I'm going to do all of this to see results fast, to really slow down, to let go, say no and go slow. That was a mantra that we were using. Um, and we realized that it came back to this relationship from the past and being able to have him do some journaling around it. He actually wound up, writing a letter to this former relationship and being able to process it fully. That helped him before he fully flipped into that mode where he wanted to go into like a really extreme diet, to come back to, his body and recognize, what, I actually am on the right path. I know that right now maybe this is taking a little longer than I expected. And then bam, the next 2 weeks he saw a huge breakthrough when it came to losing some weight and really getting back onto a more regular movement a regular movement routine and everything.
That's
So
awesome.
it shows up in very interesting
Mm-hmm.
ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
A great example of one event in our life, and pretty soon it's running these patterns that we're not even consciously aware of. And I can imagine breaking through that for him probably let him feel so free in so many ways, not just around his foods and movements, but I bet he just feels like a whole new person in life.
Yeah, and I think, the biggest takeaway from that for him was that he recognized the pattern coming on, and then he had the idea to write a letter to the past relationship, right? So, if you when it comes to human psychology, naturally, we don't want to be told what to do. We don't like it might work for a set amount of time to get a meal plan or to be told to journal or to get an exercise routine, but ultimately he found his own strategy, right, to be able to do that exercise, to have that breakthrough. And that's really what coaching comes down to, is we know internally what to do. Sometimes we don't necessarily see it right away, but the coach is going to help you find that, to have those breakthroughs.
Yeah. And I love the longevity of that and the sustainability of it instead of a short term fad or something that is
Hmm.
in the moment, but it's like, no, this is actually a strategy now he's going to have for the rest of his life. Awesome.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
We just followed up last week, and he's still journaling every day and
Cool.
continuing to see breakthroughs. So it's
Mm-hmm.
fun. I love it.
Awesome. Are there, aside from weight loss, are there other common things people come to see you for?
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with people when it comes to emotional eating and that emotional side of food, because we know, you know, in our culture, it may not seem like this, but food is more of just an experience rather than just eating. So that's really where I focus on working with people. There are other coaches who focus on other things like gut health, women's health, menstrual health. There's coaches for almost any part of health and wellness. Potentially have an ailment or somewhere that you want to have a breakthrough, there's coaches who specialize. Me personally, with my journey and what I've been through, and with the clients I've worked with, emotional eating is definitely where I specialize, I would say.
Nice. Awesome. I think that's such a huge service for people out in the world too. What are there,
Mhm.
so aside from the categories of like who you like to work with, like you just mentioned coaches for different types of people, then within that, are there
Mhm.
different styles of coaches?
Yeah, that's a good question. The program that I took, it was called the Well Coaches, and they really focus on that, motivational interviewing, appreciative inquiry, positive psychology. I guess, are you asking like when it comes to health coaching in particular? Because I mean, there's
Yeah,
life coaching, which is a very similar and it uses the same principles.
probably within the health coaching realm. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's, the thing with coaching that I think is really cool when it comes to if you're doing like executive coaching or business coaching, life coaching, health coaching. The principles are the same in that we are really the clients are guiding the sessions and guiding the program and really choosing where everything goes next.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, I with all the clients I've worked with, there's obviously similarities, but every single person has their own personalized plan at the same time. And then, like I said, too, coaches will focus on certain issues, but we know too with health, everything's interconnected. So a lot of times, maybe someone comes in because they want to lose weight, and then they end up having breakthroughs in other parts of their life, like career change or you know whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
As for specific, I guess, styles of health coach, though, that's a good question. I might have to do some more research on that.
Okay.
As far as I know, most of the principles are
Yes.
pretty consistent.
Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. What about, I know you had mentioned sometimes, especially like I think in the weight journey, and I get a, because for example, in our office, we don't sell supplements, but we get approached a lot of times with different
Mhm.
supplements. Is that options for some people? Would that be similar where maybe some coaches would say, okay, it's less about what you're thinking, it's more just like take these things or do this, versus it sounds like in your case, you're getting more to the root of maybe
Yeah.
why the pattern developed in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, with health coaching, a lot of times, as it's a newer field, and what
Mm-hmm.
true health coaching is a newer field. There's a lot of times people who will market themselves as health coaches, and they're selling products and working for different companies to do that. And I just want everyone to know that what I do and what all of the board certified health coaches do is the opposite, right? So I'm a service only health coach. All of the board certified health coaches that I know, for the most part, are service only. They may have a product here and there that can help, but that's really honestly supplements and everything is outside of my scope.
Mm-hmm.
If there's someone that I have that comes in that wants to try supplements or whatever it may be, I'm going to refer them out to maybe a naturopathic doctor or nutritionist, someone who specializes more in that. Board certified coaches, we are really focused on the psychology aspect,
Got it.
and the sessions. It's similar to in length and maybe in style as like seeing with like a psychologist, but rather than focusing on overcoming maybe past adverse events or working in that realm, it's really focusing on things that are serving you and that will serve you, and then finding ways to implement those into your life. So, long-winded answer, long story short, no,
Mm-hmm.
I don't work with any
Got it.
sort of products or anything.
Yeah. Okay.
But if I have clients who are interested, I have people who I refer out to.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah, and not that there's anything wrong with products, just at the different avenues.
Yep.
I think for the underlying behavior issue, you've got to address the psychology opponent, and that's
Yes.
my wife does parent
Yeah. And
coaching
you're.
and life coaching, and what I love about the
Mhm.
coaching aspect, like you said, is it's helping people. I feel like move forward a little more quickly instead of really focusing on all the things in the past and trying to clear out all the past stuff. It's more like, hey, if this is already working, these are your values. Let's just line these up and get moving forward. So cool.
Yes, exactly. It's that internal piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's recognizing that we do have the capacity, at least when it comes to behavior and what we know we can do to do that from an internal perspective. If there are things that externally can help out, that's not necessarily what I do,
Yeah.
but it can be a great catalyst as well.
Awesome. And that's, yeah, that inspiration coming from within. I love it. What would,
Hmm.
if someone then is interested in learning more and connecting with you, what is that initial um, consult? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I have people apply to work with me just because I want to make sure that we will be a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone's interested in connecting with me, seeing more about what I do, or for my application, it's all on my website. It's coachkrug.com. And it all starts with really us just connecting on the phone for about a 15 to 20-minute conversation to discover, where are you at? Where do you want to be? And am I going to be the right person to help you get there? That's
Awesome.
that's where it starts.
Cool. Awesome. Well, that sounds wonderful. So if you are watching this and wondering, hey, maybe this is what I need as the next steps, I definitely encourage you to reach out to Michael because he's fantastic at what he does. I know him personally, so he's just a high quality man, and he's gonna be able to, really dive deep with you and let you know if he can help or not. And I think as he was explaining his own story, if you can make that shift for yourself, it's gonna make a huge difference, not only now but for your whole future.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we stand for your health inspired by choice, and
Hmm.
I thank you, Dr. Ty, too, for having me on today. And
Yeah,
I am just really grateful for all of the work that you and Samantha do for our community and for society as a whole. You inspire me, so I thank you.
awesome. Well, thanks, Michael. All
Yes,
right, guys. Well, we'll put Coach Krug's info in the comments below as well to give you that, and definitely reach out to him. All right, we'll see you
awesome.
guys later.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Yeah.